5 amazing money secret schools hidden from you. Discover the transformative lessons revealed. Sarah's fingers quivered as she thumbed through the yellowed pages of the ledger. Each figure, each sentence. Didn't he just speak of numbers? They whispered the haunting reverberations of her father's dashed hopes. What do I know about money? She thought, her heart racing at the mere idea of stepping into the invisible shackles of finance. All she could see was the suffocating weight of bills accumulating on her kitchen table and the fear throbbing in her chest for her children's futures. As a waitress at the Oak Ridge diner, she traded her time for pennies, all the while wearing a smile that belied the turmoil within. What kind of life was this for her kids? After another shift wrangling surly customers and navigated the greasy remnants of burgers, she came home to a silence that hung heavy. Would they ever escape the cycle of struggle? As she sunk into bed each night, dreams of stability danced just out of reach. The ledger, tucked in her father's belongings, opened a door she'd never thought to explore, a path fraught with fear, yet laced with potential. Could the keys to a better life, something so vital and liberating, lie in those dusty pages? Mrs. Jenkins, her elderly neighbor, recognized the flicker of curiosity in Sarah's eyes and offered to guide her through the financial maze that once tormented her too. It's about understanding what you're facing, she reassured, her weathered hands wrapping around a steaming cup of coffee. Yet the specter of her own doubts loomed like a storm cloud. What if she stumbled at the first hurdle? What if the town that long viewed her with pity snickered at her audacity to dream? Sarah inhaled sharply, balancing the ledger against her chest. The ink-stamped entries beckoned her. The line between respectability and ridicule swayed like a pendulum, and within that chaotic swing, she felt the grip of anxiety. Each sipped cup of coffee with Mrs. Jenkins heightened her awareness but also her trepidation. The stakes felt heavier, a painful twist in her gut every time she dared to imagine a world where she wasn't just scraping by. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But now, armed with newfound knowledge, her feet felt like lead when she considered confronting Mr. Thompson. He was a titan in Oak Ridge's realm, admired yet feared, a man both shrewd and merciless. Facing him felt like standing barefoot on a tightrope above a chasm, every eye in the town watching, waiting for her to falter. The whispers that followed her "Why is she trying?" were the echoes of her fear metastasizing. Could she withstand the pressure? What would that confrontation reveal, not just about herself, but about the very fabric of her community? As the day of reckoning loomed, the weight of her father's ledger pressed against her vision. Was she ready to challenge the status quo? Would it destroy her, or awaken something powerful in her? The tension twisted tighter, closing in, as if pushing her toward an inevitable confrontation with not just Mr. Thompson, but with her own deepest fears. Shadows loomed along the edges of her aspirations, concealing the potential for failure as the town's gaze sharpened, threatening to expose her vulnerability. The path she walked blurred between opportunity and demise, leaving her stranded on the precipice of change. Sarah woke early, the dim light of dawn filtering through her kitchen window. Today was the day she would face Mr. Thompson. The ledger lay open on the table, its numbers like a map leading her toward an uncertain destination. She could hear her children's soft breathing from the nearby bedrooms, a reminder of what was at stake. It was more than just her fight. It was about their future, a pivotal moment that could alter their destinies forever. Gripping the edge of the table, she felt her resolve trembling. Last night had been restless. Visions of success intertwined with visions of failure dominated her thoughts. Mrs. Jenkins had tried to reassure her with stories of her own encounters, how she had managed to negotiate her way through financial turmoil. "Knowledge is power, Sarah," she had said, her voice a steady anchor in the storm of self-doubt. Yet, as Sarah stared at the ledger, Doubt wormed its way through her confidence. What if found itself unprepared, too naive to handle the confrontation ahead? At the Oak Ridge diner, she slipped into her work routine, but today felt different. Even amid clattering dishes and the chatter of regulars, she was weighed down by a profound urgency. Each smile she forced felt like a mask, the laughter of the patrons ringing hollow against the war drums in her mind. Could she really turn the tide? The questions spiraled without reprieve in the midst of this turmoil. Her mind turned to the ledger again. No longer did the ink seem to represent her father's failures. It now mirrored all the lessons she had learned about money management, budgeting, saving, and investing. She felt herself growing with each passing moment of reflection. The numbers pulsated with stories of resilience, urging her not to be a victim but rather a challenger of the abyss that had consumed so many before her. The thought ignited a flicker of determination, a resolve to confront her own hesitations with each customer she served. She practiced her pitch in her mind, formulating strategies, rehearsing responses to whatever Mr. Thompson might throw her way. "I deserve to be here," she reminded herself, the quiet affirmation gaining volume. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming her life, her agency. As her shift ended, the clock felt like it was giving her a countdown. The diner emptied out, leaving only ghostly echoes of laughter and clinking silverware. Alone in the quiet, she gathered her things. The warm updraft of the spring breeze brushed against her face as she stepped outside, grounding her in the moment. Facing Mr. Thompson meant ripping a veil on all the fear that had clouded her life, but she felt the power growing within her. What would happen next could either cement her resolve or send her spiraling backward. Arriving at Thompson's office, she hesitated for a heartbeat, the weight of the moment heavy on her chest. Could she break through the wall of indifference he had built around himself? Each step toward his office felt monumental, a march toward a confrontation that had taken root deep within her psyche. She was here, leaning into the discomfort, ready to untangle her fears and find the fortitude dwelling beneath. Just as she raised her hand to knock, a sudden thought gripped her, a realization of how far she had come, yet how far she still needed to travel. This wasn't merely a battle against Mr. Thompson. It was about unearthing the potential within herself, something she hadn't believed possible until this moment. The door was solid, unyielding, but she could feel the doubt receding as she took a deep breath. The moment of truth was here, ready to unveil not just what was to come, but what had been buried deep within her all along. Would she emerge victorious or face a new set of challenges? Her heart raced as she finally knocked, unsure of what awaited her on the other side. Determination surged. This was the beginning of her true journey. In that moment, she realized the upcoming confrontation was not just with Mr. Thompson, but with the very fabric of her self-doubt and insecurity. As the door creaked open, the world inside awaited her, and the stakes could not be higher. How would she seize this opportunity? As the door opened, Sarah stepped into a neatly organized office that felt more intimidating than welcoming. Mr. Thompson sat behind a polished oak desk, his expression inscrutable. The air was thick with an unspoken challenge, and she felt herself shrink, if only for a moment. With the ledger tucked under her arm, she realized the urgency of her mission. This was her opportunity to reclaim agency over her family's precarious financial situation. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice monotonous, devoid of any warmth, yet it echoed in her ears like an alarm. "Yes, Mr. Thompson," she managed to reply, squaring her shoulders. The tremor in her voice reminded her of her vulnerability, but she pushed that aside, focusing on the task at hand. He gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing, an instinctive choice that claimed her space. She had come to advocate for her family's future, not to submit to his authority. The ledger was open in her mind, a collection of numbers, but within it lay her transformation from a passive observer of her life to an active participant. "Let us get straight to the point," Mr. Thompson said, arching an eyebrow. "What do you think you can achieve today?" As he spoke, Sarah felt her heart pound in rhythm with her thoughts. "I believe I can negotiate a more manageable plan regarding my father's debt." The statement fell from her lips, surprising even herself. It wasn't just bravado. It was a declaration of her newfound resolve. She was not just a daughter trying to correct her father's past. She was, and had always been, capable. His expression shifted slightly, a flicker of curiosity breaking through his facade. And why should I entertain this notion? She inhaled deeply, drawing strength from the quiet resolve she had nurtured through sleepless nights and endless shifts at the diner. Because I understand the figures, but more importantly, I understand the stakes. It's not just about numbers. It's about people, my children, their future. I won't let this burden define us. For an instant, time seemed suspended, and she held her ground, forcing him to evaluate her, a seemingly ordinary woman armed with determination. This moment, she realized, was a revelation. She was more than her circumstances. She was a mother, a provider, and an agent of change. Mr. Thompson leaned back in his chair, his face inscrutable, as if he were weighing her words against a set of unwritten standards. You think you're capable of negotiating with me? With a company that has seen countless like you come and go? Every single like me had their breaking point, she retorted, conviction bleeding into her tone. Mine is right now. I am here, refusing to be another statistic. The energy shifted, and for the first time, he appeared moderately intrigued rather than dismissive. Yet, lurking beneath that flicker of interest was an underlying hostility, perhaps a challenge she had yet to see clearly. You might be surprised how difficult this process is. It's not merely about earnestness. It's about leverage. Then let us discuss the leverage, Sarah said, feeling that familiar tension building in her chest but redirecting it into unwavering determination. I am willing to give you a detailed proposal, grounded in the financial lessons I've absorbed. It includes the impacts of this debt on our family and how addressing this now can still yield better outcomes for you in the long run. She could see the calculation behind Mr. Thompson's eyes, a dance of skepticism and the faintest hint of respect. It was a start. Very well, present your proposal. But be warned, he leaned forward, narrowing his gaze. If this fails, the fallout will not just be for you. It will linger for those you care about. As Sarah walked out of the office, the dichotomy of fear and empowerment clashed within her. She had initiated the negotiation, but what she had not yet tapped into was the knowledge that she had something to prove, not just to him, but to herself. Standing in the hallway, she felt the raw potential of what lay ahead. Her heart raced, knowing she was embarking on a negotiation far deeper than financial figures, a journey toward discovering her true strength. Just as she reached for her phone to draft her proposal, a familiar face at the end of the hall caught her attention. It was a former classmate, someone who once thrived in life's upper echelon, a forgotten connection now reigniting with unspoken questions. How would this encounter alter her course? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the figure approaching her. It was Mia, the golden girl of high school, a perpetual overachiever whose laughter used to echo through the hallways. They had shared dreams back then, visions of futures that sparkled brightly, untainted by the weight of adult responsibilities. Now that very spirit appeared to hang in the air, heavy with the remnants of youth's illusions. Mia, Sarah managed, forcing a smile to mask the swell of insecurities threatening to rise. They embraced briefly, and the warmth radiated memories of a time when ambitions felt limitless. Wow, Sarah, it's been ages. I heard your family is going through some things. How are you holding up? The concern in her voice sparked a flicker of guilt. Here was Mia, clearly thriving, while Sarah felt trapped in an economic chokehold, clutching to the strings of a fraying ledger. I'm managing, she replied, cloaking her struggle in a thin veneer. I've actually come into a bit of a situation where I need to negotiate some debts, trying to reclaim a little control. The honesty surprised her. Perhaps she could be transparent with someone who had once understood her. Mia's eyes sparkled with unexpected intrigue. Negotiate? Wow, that's ambitious. I'm sure you've got it figured out, but if you'd like my insight, I've learned a few things since college that might help you, she offered, flipping her hair over her shoulder with a confidence that Sarah envied. On the surface, Mia's offer felt generous, but deeper down, it stirred a fear. What unique wisdom could someone who had always hovered above her grasp? It was a chance for enlightenment, but would it belittle the struggle she had been enduring? Sure. Any pointers would be appreciated, Sarah said, deliberately refraining from allowing doubt to creep into her tone. She needed to build bridges, even with those who had seemed unreachable before. Mia led Sarah to a nearby cafe where the atmosphere hummed with cheerful chatter. As they sat across from each other with steaming mugs clasped in hand, Sarah leaned in, urging her former classmate to share her insights. It's all about mindset and the right strategy, Mia started, her voice infused with an energy Sarah had long since forgotten. In finance, knowing the numbers is one thing, but understanding the emotional aspect, both yours and the lender's, can make all the difference. You have to adjust your approach accordingly. Their conversation flowed naturally, Mia articulating concepts that finally illuminated Sarah's problem in a new light. You have to create a narrative around your negotiation, Mia advised, her eyes bright with certainty. Make them see the bigger picture, how the outcome serves their interests too. Sarah listened closely, each word weaving into the fabric of her developing strategy. The fog of uncertainty began to lift, revealing paths she hadn't considered before. She needed to not only present her proposal but to craft a compelling story that wrapped the financial facts in emotional truth. As they discussed tactics, Sarah discovered a lingering passion within herself for analytical thinking, an instinct that had been overshadowed by doubt. Every insight Mia provided resonated, sparking confidence that Sarah hadn't expected to rekindle. Perhaps she could navigate this dark forest after all. Better yet, perhaps she could thrive within it. Mia's excitement grew palpable. I can't believe how much I'm learning from this conversation too. We need to keep each other accountable as we push forward. You're on an incredible journey. Absolutely, Sarah responded. The sincerity in her voice surprised her. Could she actually build a network beyond her immediate struggles, one that would empower her rather than remind her of her plight? As they parted, Sarah felt a lightness accompany her determination. Yet lurking in the back of her mind was a gnawing fear. Would this newfound knowledge truly enable her to confront the obstacles ahead? With a draft proposal simmering in her mind and Mia's wisdom bouncing around like an electric charge, Sarah stepped back into the reality of her financial battle. The stakes had never been higher, and though hope flickered, it was accompanied by a palpable tension. As she prepared to face the next challenge, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter had simply opened another door, one that might lead to even more significant confrontations, revealing pieces of herself she had yet to uncover. What other secrets lay hidden, waiting to ignite her true potential? The sun dipped low in the sky as Sarah found herself standing before the desk in her small, cluttered apartment. The draft proposal lay open, its contents a blend of numbers and emotional truths, a precarious balancing act she had crafted after her enlightening meeting with Mia. She inhaled deeply, willing herself to confront the lingering doubts that threatened to undermine her courage. With the stakes increasing and deadlines looming, Sarah grabbed a pen and began outlining her approach toward the creditors. It would take more than just facts and figures. She needed to tap into the emotional resonance of her narrative. Each debt had a story, and she realized these stories weren't just hers to bear. They were vectors through which she could gain understanding from others. As her pen flowed steadily, she began to combat not just her financial struggles but her self-imposed limitations. Moments of self-reflection emerged as she wrote. Why had she allowed fear to dictate her choices for so long? Each stroke was a small rebellion against the malaise that had clung to her like a shadow. If she wanted to reclaim control over her life, it started with crafting her voice, a voice that harnessed both vulnerability and strength. She paused, eyeing the clock as it inched closer to her evening meeting with a local financial advisor. How had she arrived here, caught in a cycle of anxiety over numbers and projections? This was a chance to step beyond trepidation, to ask questions, to seek clarity. It was also an opportunity for growth, to seek guidance without the overhanging anxiety of judgment, a leap into the unknown. In the mirror, her reflection caught glimmers of determination she hadn't realized were there. Forcing herself to confront the discomfort that had long been her companion, she mentally repeated the visions of what her life could be if she succeeded. What doors might open if she stopped looking back and instead embraced where she was headed. The meeting room, with its sterile white walls and fluorescent lights, was intimidating at first glance, but Sarah steeled herself, firming her resolve. As she sat across from Dan, the financial advisor, she summoned the lessons learned from Mia. To reframe her narrative, she would need to articulate not just her needs, but also the journey that had led her here. "I've had some difficulties," she began, allowing a tremor of vulnerability to seep into her voice, "but I believe there is a way to turn things around." The words came more easily than she anticipated. The act of speaking them aloud shifted something within. Dan, attentive and perceptive, nodded slowly, encouraging her to continue. With each sentence, Sarah broke down the story she had long feared to share. The emotional weight of her struggles began to seem lighter, transformed by honesty. "We need to work together on this," Dan said, his tone reassuring. "First, let us map your obligations and strategize." As they started to dissect the situation, Sarah's initial anxiety morphed into active participation. It felt empowering, almost electric, as she engaged with the intricacies of her finances. Understanding the math was only part of the equation. She recognized the emotional stakes and how they informed each decision. "You're not just reclaiming control financially," Dan added as they progressed, "you're building a foundation for yourself, one that will reinforce your future in ways you haven't yet imagined." His acknowledgement buoyed her spirit, a gleaming thread weaving through the fabric of her emerging self. This was truly a transformational moment. With each insight gained, she felt pieces of her old self reshaping into something resilient and vibrant. Yet, lurking beneath this budding confidence was a familiar voice. Was she truly strong enough to overhaul her life? What if this progress retreated the moment hardship struck again? As their meeting wound down, Sarah left with a great deal more than just a plan. She had glimpsed a version of herself that was no longer passive but engaged, ready to battle adversities head-on. The bittersweet awareness that uncertainty still loomed like a specter compelled her forward. Would she have the tenacity to sustain this newfound resolve amid the challenges that awaited? This energizing moment ignited a new question. What other revelations lie in wait that might extract even deeper layers of her potential from within? As Sarah opened the door to her apartment, a rush of mixed emotions surged within her. The meeting had sparked a flicker of hope, yet doubt sat heavily on her shoulders. Encouraged by Dana's words, she felt the need to push further, to wield her vulnerability not just as a tool for survival, but as a weapon for transformation. She dropped her bag on the floor and headed straight to her desk, anxious to begin mapping out her next steps. Returning to her proposal, Sarah sifted through the papers strewn about. It was time to take inventory not just of her finances, but of her skills and beliefs. She grabbed another sheet and started a new list. What she was capable of, beyond the numbers that had long defined her struggles. For too long, Sarah had seen herself solely in the light of her debts, her failures. But she could be so much more. She began to scribble. Problem-solving, communication, resilience. Each word felt like a small affirmation, a tangible representation of who she was beyond her circumstances. These words flickered to life on the page. The chaotic energy in her apartment seemed to focus into a singular force. The doubts pressed at the edges of her mind, but she quelled them by repeating her list, each articulation building her resolve. After a while, she took a step back to examine her emerging narrative. This proposal was not only a plea for leniency. It was a testament to her journey, an empowering narrative of how she had weathered storms, emerged stronger, and ultimately desired to rise above her circumstances. With that in mind, she rewrote her approach to her creditors. Instead of begging for understanding, she would insist on her commitment to change her commitment to herself. As she reworked her proposal, the flow of her thoughts felt more fluid, almost rhythmic. The act of integrating her newfound understanding of her strengths into her plea illuminated a clarity she hadn't anticipated. This process of reevaluation was revolutionary. Each sentence became a declaration, and she could see the power in confronting her fears. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, jolting her from her focus. She hesitated only briefly, then walked to the door, only to find Mia standing there. "Hey, you look like you could use some company," Mia said, her eyes brimming with warmth. "Actually, Sarah stammered. I just was working on something important. Mia smiled knowingly. That's exactly why I'm here. I figured you might be. Mind if I join? Sarah stepped aside, inviting Mia into her cluttered space. As they settled near the desk, Sarah opened up about her meeting with Dan, sharing the emotional empowerment she had experienced. The raw honesty flooded the room, creating an atmosphere of solidarity. I can't believe how liberating it feels to share this, she confessed, her voice steady, punctuated by an undercurrent of excitement. It's like I'm finally taking control, not just of my finances, but of who I want to be. Mia's nod encouraged Sarah to continue. I'm reframing my proposal. I want my creditors to see me as someone who is committed to working through these challenges. That's a bold approach, Mia responded, a glint of admiration in her eyes. But what's next? Once you send that off, how do you plan to sustain that energy? As the question hung between them, Sarah felt a jolt of trepidation. Sustaining this energy felt monumental, a daunting task to maintain her momentum. She paused, searching her thoughts. I think I need to set concrete goals. Not just financially, but personally. I need to build a system around these strengths I've just discovered. Maybe take a class or find a mentor. Mia's face lit up. That's perfect. Why don't we brainstorm together? I could help you find resources and we can create an action plan. Empowered by their collaboration, Sarah began to envision the next phase of her journey. For the first time, she recognized that this was not just about rectifying past mistakes. It was about designing a life she truly wanted to lead, one built on intention and purpose. But as the dusk settled outside her window, whisper of doubt loomed, the fear that this energy would dissipate, just as her resolve had faltered before. What if she couldn't sustain it? As she leaned into this shared sense of hope, Sarah knew deep down that now was not the time to falter. The clarity she sought was forming on the horizon, but she needed to keep reaching toward it. What if, she said, eyes sparkling with determination, this is just the beginning. What else can I discover about myself as I pursue this? The inevitable answer lay heavy in the air, charged yet tantalizing. For clarity also held the scent of danger. What parts of herself might she have to unearth that were buried deep, waiting to be confronted? As they worked together, the flickering lights overhead buzzed, mirroring the burgeoning flames of her ambition, while the shadows of doubt quietly stood by, waiting for their moment to strike. As the evening deepened, Sarah felt a new resolve hardening within her. Mia's presence ignited possibilities, revitalizing her energy as they filled pages with ideas. Their brainstorming session became a dance of words and intentions, where Sarah articulated her dreams, rather than burying them beneath layers of anxiety. Let us make a list of 3 concrete actions you can take this week, Mia suggested, leaning in with enthusiasm. Something actionable that advances your momentum. The challenge ignited a flash of inspiration. I could enroll in an evening course on financial literacy, she proposed swiftly, her heart racing at the thought. It's not just about managing my debt. I want to understand how to build wealth. Mia's eyes sparkled. That's a fantastic idea. You'll gain the knowledge to take charge of your finances and bolster your confidence. Sarah scribbled down the suggestion, her hand moving with increased urgency, as if the ink could solidify her plans into reality. Also, I could tap into my network and ask for a mentor. There's someone in my building who works in financial services. I could reach out and see if they might be willing to meet. Absolutely. Don't forget to ask about resources they recommend: books, blogs, anything that can keep you learning, Mia added, her voice laced with encouragement. What about a regular check-in with you? Sarah proposed. I think having personal accountability could really help ensure I don't lose sight of these goals. Count me in, Mia grinned, beaming with camaraderie. We'll make sure each of us sticks to our commitments. As they finalized their action items, a sense of clarity enveloped Sarah. This was more than a plan. It was her declaration of independence. Each goal served as a stepping stone to reshape her narrative. Instead of being defined by her past, she was becoming the architect of her future. Yet as the excitement bubbled within her, a darker shadow loomed beneath the surface. Could she maintain this newfound focus? Or would the old habits drag her back into complacency? The moment hung heavy in the air, reminding her of the reality she had lived. A life punctuated by broken promises to herself, enthusiasm that waned with each passing day. The echo of those past failures was disconcerting and nagged at her like a persistent itch. Sarah took a breath, aware of the precarious nature of her ambitions. "Mia," she said, her voice dropping slightly, "I need to be honest. I feel the weight of my past decisions, and I'm scared that this could just be more of the same. What if I fall back into old patterns?" Mia leaned closer, her expression shifting to one of seriousness. "But what has changed this time? You're wielding your story. You're approaching these challenges from a place of strength, not defeat. You have to hold on to that awareness." The challenge resonated deeply within Sarah. Perhaps they were onto something more than just plans. They were cultivating a mindset anchored in accountability and resilience. As their conversation deepened, Sarah couldn't shake off the lingering doubts. Each aspiration felt like a flash of light illuminating possibilities. Yet those shadows felt all too familiar, creeping in with their insidious whispers of defeat. Still, she chose to look forward, deliberately pushing against the tide of doubt. Rising from her chair, she felt elation sparking like electricity through her veins. "I'm committed," she declared unexpectedly. "I will not let my fears dictate my actions. It's time I step into this fully." Mia's beaming smile ushered in a sense of solidarity, reminding Sarah she wasn't alone on this journey. Together, they could face any obstacles in their path as they wrapped up their plan. However, an unsettling possibility lingered in Sarah's mind. She realized that transforming her financial situation was only the beginning. That foundational layer of personal growth was merely scratching the surface. What else lay beneath? With her heart alight with ambition, Sarah felt the tension tighten in her chest. The unearthed resolve within her came tinged with the realization that deeper, perhaps darker elements of her past awaited her exploration. What parts of herself would she have to confront in this process, and how would they shape her? As the door to transformation creaked open, a new journey beckoned. Little did she know, the most profound revelations awaited just beyond the threshold of familiarity. The next morning brought an unfamiliar surge of energy as Sarah awoke. The sun streamed through her window, illuminating the stacks of books she had neglected. She had several hours before her first meeting, and for once, instead of scrolling through social media, Sarah felt compelled to dive into her plans. With a steaming cup of coffee in hand, she turned her thoughts to the financial literacy course. Figuring out how to enroll would be her first step. She opened her laptop, scouring local community college websites. This was more than research. It represented the beginning of her proactive journey. As the minutes turned into an hour, Sarah felt the first twinges of impatience rising. Searching for information felt less like a quest for knowledge and more like a rabbit hole. She quickly reminded herself that this was part of the effort, part of the process. Finally enrolling in the course lit a tiny fire of accomplishment inside her. It was a tangible commitment, a choice made by her and for her. Just as she clicked the submit button, her phone buzzed with a notification from Mia. Her weekly check-in was still on, and they would meet at their favorite cafe later that afternoon. With urgency driving her forward, Sarah decided now was not the time to rest on her laurels. She opened her contacts, searching for the name of the mentor she had considered reaching out to. Mark Ross, a finance professional from her building. Summoning her courage, Sarah drafted a message. He might say no or worse, never respond, but she sensed that waiting wouldn't serve her growth. "Hi Mark, this is Sarah from 5B. I hope you're doing well. I'm looking to improve my financial literacy and was wondering if you would be open to meeting for coffee. I would appreciate your insights and guidance." After sending the message, Sarah was struck by a wave of anxiety. Would he view her request as naive? Would he ignore her? But as she stared at the clock ticking toward her meeting with Mia, she forced herself to breathe deeply. Doubt didn't hold the power anymore. Determination did. The cafe buzzed with chatter, the aroma of coffee filling the air as she and Mia settled into a corner table. Mia's eyes sparkled with anticipation, as if waiting to hear how Sarah's first day had unfolded. I signed up for the finance course, Sarah announced with excitement, reveling in her own accomplishment. Yes, that is amazing. And how about the mentor? Mia asked, leaning forward, eager to hear more. I reached out to Mark Ross, Sarah replied, the earlier tension creeping back into her voice. Mia's brows furrowed a bit. That is bold. What if he doesn't respond? Or worse, what if it's awkward? I don't know, Sarah confessed. But I realized that I need to surround myself with people who encourage growth, not fear. He may surprise me, or maybe I should surprise myself. The words resonated with an undeniable truth. It was a step toward growth that had scared her, but it also felt liberating, like shedding old, heavy layers of apprehension. Just then, her phone buzzed. A message from Mark read, Hi Sarah, I'd love to chat over coffee. How about tomorrow afternoon? The shock coursed through her veins. He agreed. This meeting could become an opportunity that would change everything for her. Mia clapped her hands in delight, as Sarah's palms began sweating with excitement and mounting dread. Here lay another challenge. Speaking openly with someone she admired, someone who had walked the path she was now embarking on. Would she be able to articulate her needs, to capture her intentions? Let us think about what you want from this meeting. Does he know about your goals? How can you express your commitment? Mia prompted, her excitement contagious as they sketched out a plan for the meeting. Sarah felt a deepening certainty within her. Each action was a building block toward personal empowerment. But there was still the looming question. Would she be able to face the parts of herself that clung to outdated patterns, the darker shadows that stirred with doubts? While her intentions illuminated the path ahead, shadows hinted at secrets buried deep. The tension coiled around her heart, a reminder that each step forward demanded a confrontation with her self-imposed barriers. With newfound determination, she resolved to show up fully in this meeting. But could she unveil her vulnerabilities? As she prepared to leave the cafe, the questions lingered. Tomorrow would surely test her courage. Would she step boldly into the light of possibility, or retreat into the shadows of her fears? The rays of sunlight were still warm as Sarah stepped into the cafe the next day, her heart racing with both excitement and anxiety. She had spent the night tossing and turning, rehearsing conversations in her mind, wondering how she would convey her myriad thoughts and aspirations to Mark. Merely getting to this meeting was a testament to her evolving mindset. Each step she took felt deliberate, a dance of purpose as she navigated between tables filled with other patrons engaged in casual chatter. Yet, her focus remained tethered to her own mission, gaining insights into financial literacy, a realm she had previously brushed aside with a casual indifference. When she spotted Mark at their designated table, she felt an immediate sense of kinship with him. He was a man in his 40s, dressed meticulously in a navy blazer and crisp white shirt, the embodiment of professionalism. His dark hair, peppered with gray, gave him an air of wisdom. As he looked up and smiled, she felt welcomed. Sarah, great to meet you, he said, rising to extend his hand as she approached. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, she replied, trying to match his tone of ease. They settled into the conversation, and Sarah started to gain momentum. I recently enrolled in a financial literacy course, she shared, the words spilling out. I realized I needed to cultivate a better understanding of my finances. It's crucial for my career, especially with my aspirations to move up in the company. Mark nodded, his brow furrowing slightly in concentration. That's a smart move. Financial literacy isn't just about numbers, it's empowering. What made you realize you wanted to learn? She hesitated, caught off guard by the depth of his question. Honestly, I think it was this growing sense of dissatisfaction with how I handled my money. I felt intimidated by financial discussions, to the point where I would avoid them entirely. I realized I couldn't keep doing that if I want to progress. Mark's expression softened, a hint of encouragement in his eyes. Takes courage to face those fears head-on. Many people don't recognize the weight of financial knowledge until it's almost too late. Sarah felt a flicker of courage. There was something in his tone that disarmed her reservations. Yes, and I also figured that if I want to be taken seriously in my field, I have to demonstrate a command over my finances. I want to invest in my future, not just financially, but also in skills that can augment my career path. That's very insightful, he replied, his demeanor shifting toward a more engaging mentorship role. Tell me, what specific goals do you have in mind? How do you envision using this new knowledge? At this moment, Sarah felt a surge of clarity. I want to understand investments better. I've avoided them, figuring it was beyond my reach. But now, I recognize their importance, especially if I want to build savings or even start a side project. Mark leaned back, considering her words. It's great you want to diversify your knowledge. However, it's essential to understand risk management too. Lots of people dive into investments without truly understanding the consequences. He paused, allowing Sarah's thoughts to regroup. As she opened her mouth to respond, she realized there was still much she had not considered yet. Vulnerability was creeping in. Yet, in that moment, another layer of self-awareness unfolded. Risk management. That's a good point, she said slowly, grounding herself. I think it's something I've shied away from, always worried about losing what little I have. But I'm starting to see risk as not just a threat, but part of growth. Exactly, Mark replied, his enthusiasm palpable. He shared anecdotes about his career, emphasizing how embracing risks had led him to success, while acknowledging the necessary caution that comes with it. Listening to him was both enlightening and intimidating, but Sarah was ready to lean into the discomfort as their conversation wandered deeper. She understood that this meeting was more than just tactical advice. It was a profound unveiling of her professional identity. Each new piece of information gathered, each story shared, chipped away at her lingering self-doubt. Yet, even as she felt empowered in the moment, she couldn't ignore the undercurrents of fear still gnawing at her. Would she be able to take actionable steps beyond this meeting? Would she truly commit to the changes she sought, or revert to her old patterns soon after? As their time together drew to a close, Mark expressed his willingness to guide her further. Let us connect regularly, Sarah. I'd be happy to help you navigate this journey to financial literacy. As she left the cafe, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation flooded her senses. She had taken significant strides, but a haunting question echoed in her mind. Would she muster the courage to face the world of finance with the same zeal she had embraced in this meeting? She glanced down at her calendar, where her next hurdle awaited, a presentation at work that could determine her viability for a promotion. Would she channel the newfound confidence she had acquired today, or would she slip back into obscurity? The morning sun poured through Sarah's kitchen window, casting a golden light on the table strewn with papers. Each bill, each document now carried a different meaning. They were no longer symbols of despair but markers of the journey she had undertaken in her newfound quest for financial mastery. Today was the day. The day she would present her proposal at work, seeking not just a promotion but the acknowledgement of her transformation. The weight of her father's past had finally lightened, replaced by the resilience she had cultivated through countless meetings, efforts, and brave confrontations. In her heart, anticipation fluttered. As she prepared her notes, the specifics of her proposal clicked into place seamlessly, reminding her of the strategies she had devised with Mia and Mark. This wasn't just about numbers and debt. It was about reclaiming power over her life, transforming fear into motivation. Walking into the boardroom, Sarah felt like a different woman. She had stepped beyond her fears and into her truth. Her colleagues, the same faces she had once viewed as barriers, now appeared as allies waiting to witness her growth. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady, a rich contrast to the quivers of trepidation she had felt in the past. She outlined her vision, fiercely advocating for the financial proposals that had sprouted from her diligence and newfound knowledge. "I've negotiated plans not only to address debts but also to leverage our assets more effectively," she stated confidently. Each point resonated with the clarity she had nurtured through her journey. Her boss, Mr. Jenkins, who had been known for his skepticism, listened attentively, nodding in alignment with her ideas. Internal validation surged within her as her colleagues engaged with her proposal, asking questions that reflected their interest rather than judgment. Each nod, each furrowed brow of contemplation acted as fuel, reinforcing her belief that this was indeed the right path. After the presentation, Mr. Jenkins approached her with a thoughtful expression. "You've done impressive work here, Sarah. I didn't realize the depth of your understanding," he acknowledged. A wave of satisfaction surged through her. This was validation, a recognition not just of her proposal, but of her evolution as a person. "That really means a lot," she replied, anchoring her voice as gratitude swelled within her. "I appreciate the faith you've placed in me. I'm ready to take on more responsibility." In that moment, Sarah understood that her journey wasn't just about rectifying past mistakes. It was about growing into someone capable and deserving of success. As she walked out of the office, buoyed by the exhilaration of her triumph, the past faded farther behind her. The ledger that had once mirrored her father's failures now represented her achievements, a testament to overcoming hurdles, learning, and standing her ground against adversity. In the following weeks, not only did she receive an acknowledgement of her promotion, but she also found herself mentoring others who were struggling with their finances at work. Each time she shared her journey, imparting the lessons learned, she felt the confidence cascading within her. The shadows of self-doubt, once so oppressive, dimmed as she illuminated paths for others, reflecting her own transformation back to them. Sarah now embraced her identity not just as a mother or a waitress, but as a financial advocate for herself and others. With concrete plans in place, she continued her courses while exploring investments, unraveling complexities she had once deemed too daunting. The tenacity she had instilled within herself became the bedrock of her new life, marked by ambition and the promise of a brighter future. Her children noticed the changes to the way she now discussed future plans with a glint of excitement instead of anxious burdens. They were watching her, absorbing lessons rooted in strength and resilience, no longer tethered to the past but nurturing aspirations to thrive. As she stood before the mirror, the satisfied reflection stared back. The journey had demanded hard truths and uncomfortable confrontations, but the accomplishments were tangible, a testament to her growth. She had not merely survived. She had conquered her limitations, achieving a sense of competence she had long sought. With her heart full of promise and a spirit ignited with purpose, Sarah stepped into the next chapter. It was a journey still unfolding, but for the first time, she was ready to seize whatever opportunities awaited her. Eyes wide open and poised to flourish as you reflect on Sarah's transformational journey. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Give a like to feed the algorithm. Your support makes all the difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's remarkable journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of personal growth.